Hello and welcome to another episode of PsycKicks. And this is the podcast where we talk about all things metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal, and in between. Because as a psychic medium, it's kind of fun to learn about these things as I go along on my mediumship journey of talking to people and souls and living a life that is alive. I don't know. Oh gosh, I feel like I need to redo the intro to this podcast because when Em and I first created this, we are your sidekicks to all things metaphysical, right? Okay, cool. Well, I wanted to have the superhero effect type thing, but also be mysterious and whatever. And I feel I don't know, when I made the intro using Audacity and just the free music that you can have on the internet, it's really just intense and heroic and mysterious, but then you just have little old me. So just bebop, here I am. So I don't know. Well, it's just things I'm thinking about. But what did I want to talk about today? Today, we're going to be answering another one of our Patreon questiones, which is exciting. And we're going to be talking about specifically the witching hour. Is it spiritually relevant? Is it even a thing? Where did it come from? Where did it go? Is it actually named Cotton Eye Joe? We don't know. But I am going to tell you those secrets. And I don't know. I just think it's a fun thing. So before we get into that, people enjoy listening to my life updates, which is things about me that isn't always related to being a professional psychic medium, which is nice. So that's what we're going to talk about. If you're not interested in listening about me as a person that exists, that's cool. You can skip to the next timestamp using the show notes or the description below if you're listening on the PsycKicks Extras YouTube channel, and clicky doodle past this part and listen to only things about the witching hour and how I think the witching hour is a thing and not, etc., etc. Also, I am going to give an update on my feelings about the Cody and Satori thing, which is way old news, I guess, but I don't know. I've had new things come to my attention about it, and just given all of the stuff that we've been talking about in past podcasts about the whole how spirituality is perceived and presented to you as who you are and how you receive information with your psychic abilities, etc., etc., how that kind of ties into my new perception or opinion about all of the stuff that's going on with Cody and Satori in the Conjuring house, etc., etc. Because I kind of I did notes today. Congratulations, guys, on that. And I thought that it was a good area to sort of talk about that a little bit. So if you're interested in that, it will be in the later podcast. But anyways, this is what I'm going to talk about for me. So I know in a past podcast, I talked about how I feel that this sort of Taylor Swift era in my life at the moment is being the sage of pages or the pagely sage. I don't know. Which ones do you guys like? Let me know in the comments below. And when I first started using my mediumship professionally and started PsycKicks with my friend, I don't know. You have the stipulation of what it is to be a medium and all of the critiques and things on the internet about this person's a fake, this person's a fraud, they're just crazy, they're delusional, they have schizophrenia, etc., etc. And being a medium is something that makes you question your credibility and the plausibility of your existence. I mean, not your existence, but what you do as a medium in your existence, which I think is normal. I think if you're not rationally thinking about, is this true? How does this work? Is this happening? Is this valid? Etc., etc., then maybe you shouldn't be thinking about spirituality all the time, because it's something that is something that can very easily uproot someone from their ability to be grounded in reality. So I just it's something that has always been on my mind. This if this is real, is this happening? Am I a psychic medium? Which is fine. And I'm getting better as I've been getting older with accepting who I am and accepting my abilities and not putting so much pressure on myself, because as we've talked about in many, many other podcasts in the past, my like proving myself to people is not what being a medium is. I'm not going to be like, yeah, you don't think I'm real? Take this. Kapow. That's not what it's like to be a medium. That is not at all what we're supposed to do. So I need to just accept who I am and what I can do with my abilities and what I can't do with my abilities, because they are not given to me by me. They are bequeathed in whatever spiritual soul contract that I agree to as a soul in this life. But I haven't wanted to learn more about spiritual things, honestly. Honestly. I have not wanted to go out of my way to learn about other people and their experiences. I mean, I am excited and open to learning about other people and their experiences and their perspectives in just like we're here at the same time, like let's finger gun Spider-Man meme it and just like bounce ideas off of each other. I'm not open to that, but I don't go out of my way to research things if it's not for work, like on my own. People would ask me like, oh, have you heard of this person? Have you heard of that person? Do you know anything about this? Or do you know anything about that? And I would tell them no, because I honestly and truly don't. And the reason I have kept myself in the dark about learning more things about spirituality and versing myself in other people's experiences and learning about them, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's a lot of people that are like, do you watch all of these things on the YouTubes about these paranormal investigators? Or do you watch this ghost hunter, et cetera, et cetera? And I don't. I really don't. I like horses and going for nature walks and learning how to cook and other like mundane things. Will I talk to you and your past loved ones? Yes, because that is exactly what I'm here to do and what I love to do, as well as like talking to your live animals and pet psychic readings, etc. But the reason I've been doing that since we've started PsycKicks is because I feel that my experiences with the spiritual, with the metaphysical, could be tainted by my understanding of other people's perceptions. You know what I'm saying? Like, how is it not a collective delusion if I'm not a part of the things that people are perceiving as well? Does that make sense? Like if I don't have prior knowledge of something, then therefore I feel that my experiences that I've had with the spiritual, metaphysical, paranormal, etc., are genuine and things that I have been actually experiencing. That is one of the reasons, the biggest reason that I have shied away from learning more about all of these things, because I'm nervous that I would not actually be experiencing them and that my brain would just be pulling from things that I've already experienced or have reference of someone else experiencing. So I have since been reflecting on this recently and thinking that perhaps this is not the way to be. Because like we've talked in past podcasts, how is it that spirit shows you things? They show you things through experiences that you've had, things that they can use in their spiritual charades, if you will, mental charades, psychic ability charades, to convey information to you. And I feel that I can only go so far with my limited toolbox of things that spirit can pull from me information wise to convey communication or create communication through me as a medium. But I feel that it is just sort of my own lack of confidence in myself that would allow me to feel that things that I've learned about spirituality could take away from the validity of my existence as a medium. Because, that's another thing I've been thinking about too, is just what is an identity? Not to completely mind mess you up, guys, but like, these are the things I've been thinking about, just like reflectively about myself, of like, I think that nowadays, one of the things that may be causing a lot of strife in people's lives is this sort of societal perception that an identity of oneself is singular, but it's not. Like, I am not just a psychic medium. That is just a portion of who I am. I am also a mother. I am a daughter. I am a wife. I'm a friend. I'm someone who loves animals. I'm someone that likes to go outside. Someone that does not really like mornings, but if I'm awake, then I will enjoy the mornings. I don't like staying up all night, but if I'm there to enjoy like a full moon, I'm excited to walk outside and enjoy a full moon. I'm someone that likes coffee when it's cold outside. I don't know, just I am not just one person or one, I don't identify with just one thing. I am not just a singular identity. I am multifaceted. I have lots of aspects to myself, etc. And I don't know. These are things I've been thinking about. I feel like a lot of people get caught up with the idea of like they personify this one aspect of themselves and they're like, therefore, that is my identity. And I'm like, maybe you might be happier with just accepting that you change and that you're allowed to change and that at any point in time you may identify more largely with this one part of yourself, like being a baker, but maybe in the evenings you are someone who crochets. You know what I'm saying? Like a doctor just doesn't walk around and only talks about doctor things. That's just how they pay their bills. Are they interested in it and are they good at it? Hopefully. Hopefully. But they're not only always talking about doctor things. They are not just a doctor. They are a person who has feelings and reflections and insides and outs. And I don't know. It's just something that I've been thinking about. And I feel that keeping myself in the dark about spiritual things is therefore keeping me in the dark about more of the spiritual experiences I could be having, or ones that I've maybe already had. And it will be helpful and refreshing to know that other people have experienced similar things as well, which is usually what happens. Emily and I would record videos and I would talk about these things, and she was very good at researching stuff. She was always researching and looking at things and asking me if I knew this or I knew that. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just was working at Starbucks. You know what I'm saying? And it would always come out to the fact of like, if I relayed some information, she's like, well, don't you know this person has said those things before? And I was like, I had no idea that another person has had this thought before. So maybe it might be more healing instead of hurtful to open myself up to be more of a learner too, since I'm in my Pagely Sage era, so that I can not only help myself, but continue to help all of you listening in a better and more constructive way. So I don't know if you guys have things that you have read or people that you feel drawn to that are inspirational, spiritual people, etc. for you, please let me know who those people are, those media or context or literature that you've read is. Put it in the comments below if you're listening on the PsycKicks Extras YouTube channel. Or shoot me an email at oliviathemedium@gmail.com. Don't send it to PsycKicks. I mean, you can, if you want to, you can use our PsycKicks email. It's just, we get a lot of emails there and it will be less lost if you send it to my personal email, which is also listed in the show notes at the very bottom if I said it too fast. But anyways, that is the things that I've been thinking about for my life update, which is just not being scared to feel invalidated as a person by learning more, which seems silly. I don't know. I've been so nervous about people's perceptions of me. That's the other thing. I know I'm a content creator and we make YouTube videos and podcasts, but I'm much more comfortable recording podcasts because I was talking to my husband about this. I don't like being perceived all the time, or at least in the way that YouTube videos allow people to perceive you. I don't know. It's just weird. I like the idea of being a voice without a face more than being a face and a voice, but that's just me. I've just been worried about how people will perceive me as me on the YouTubes if I just know all of these things. I just feel like it could have taken away from my validity as a medium when I was starting out as a professional or putting myself out there as a professional, which I'd never done before. So I don't know. It's just, it's kind of like the idea of when we go into a haunted location and I would not know the context or the history of the location so that it could be quote unquote more authentic. That's kind of what I've been doing for the past 4 years. But I feel like that is not always the best case. And I'm going to try and embrace and be more accepting of that, of who I am and just learning more. So anyways, that is my Pagely Sage. I think I like Pagely Sage better. I think that's cuter. My Pagely Sage update. on identity and learning. So anyways, all right, let's get into the meat and potatoes, since that is Oaks, my son's favorite food right now. He really likes potatoes, which just, it warms my Irish heart. The fondness that this child has for potatoes. But anyways, all right, let's talk about the witching hour. Okay, so I'm going to mispronounce your username, so I'm just gonna say Cole, but I'll try it. Kohliflie. That is your Patreon name. I adore you because you always. Well, I adore you. No, I'm just gonna say I adore you because you always comment on videos and have very constructive and reflective things to say, and it makes me happy. I love all of the patrons that are able to comment on the things that I post on Patreon and podcast, YouTube, etc., because it helps me understand where everyone is at given the things that I'm writing, the stuff that I'm creating, the topics that we're talking about, so that I can continue moving in a constructive direction. So thank you for taking the time to comment and send in questions when I asked on Patreon. And if you haven't done that because you're nervous or you are shy, that is okay too. That's fine. I appreciate all of you. Anyways, okay, so Kohliflie, if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. I'm sure you were telling me in the comments, wants to know about the witching hour. And specifically, their question sent in was, people say around 2 or 3 in the morning is the witching hour. If that is the case for everywhere on the planet, there should be no such thing because it would be, quote, the witching hour all day and night long on Earth. Which just makes me so happy because, listen, with time zones, guys, technically Cole is correct in saying that there would be a witching hour, continually present all on Earth all at the same time-ish type thing. So I was just I read their question. I was like, oh, you took out the 2 swords and you're here to fight. And I just thought that was awesome. So they continue by saying, would it be the darkness and the moon that is needed for, quote, the witching hour? What are your spiritual thoughts on that? And is there something true to that witching hour? And what do you think on why that would be? So before I get into my impression of the witching hour, well, let me just tell you what I have said about the witching hour in the past. So we would go to haunted locations, right? And I am a scaredy cat. I am the person that doesn't like the dark. I'm the person that when I was little, I would run up the stairs super, super fast because it felt like someone was chasing me. I do not necessarily like the dark unless I am making a conscious decision to feel safe, under a full moon, going for a walk on property that I know, And I don't like the dark. So when we would go on ghost investigations, heck yeah, ghost investigations are cool because I like to go to old places. I like the smell of old places. I like the antiquity. I like the feeling of normal souls that are just existing in a different place and time energetically around me. It is absolutely fabulous, super fun, going to museums and stuff like that. I'm all for it. But when it's dark outside, I don't like it being dark. Are you kidding me? My husband got me this little flashlight for ghost investigations that is literally the size of the first knuckle on my thumb. So the first knuckle up to your nail, thumb wise. And I would always clip it on my belt. And that was my emergency flashlight. So that no matter what, if something happened, I'd be like, choo, choo, choo. And just be able to have a light that lit up at least a decent part of half of a room. So at least I didn't feel like my back was up against the wall that was also dark when we went on ghost investigations. And I remember one night, I don't remember what location we were at, but I looked at Emily and I was like, Emily, why are we doing this at 3 a.m? And she's like, well, it's the witching hour. We have to do this. And I was like, I don't get the witching hour. Can't the witching hour just be 3:00 p.m. too? Why can't we do this in the middle of the sunlight when it's warm and not hailing and freezing cold and dark as frick? And she's like, well, that's just not how it works. And I was like, I don't know. I call BS on this. I feel like we could be doing this at 3:00. And we've had conversations about well, at night, all of the ambient noise of daytime activities aren't around. So if you're at a location that's near a road, there aren't car noises because no one's really out at 3, 4 in the morning unless you're working shift jobs. So I was like, okay, I get that. But did the ghost really need it to be 3 a.m.? And then she followed with like, oh, the veil thins and it's just the witching hour, 3 to 4 in the morning. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm tired. I'm cold. I want a beer. I need an ice cream sandwich. Like that was where I'm at 3 a.m. So it's just, that is what I wanted to say before I get into the research that I have conducted for you all today. And I just, I've had the thought too, Cole. I have thought it too. And I felt very, very disheartened by the fact that everyone else is like, no, this is just how it is. And I was like, I don't think so. So I don't know. Let's see. So where does the origin of the phrase, quote, the witching hour come from? I'm here to tell you. In 1535, the Catholic Church banned activities between 3 and 4 a.m. due to concerns about witchcraft in Europe. And if you want to know more about the European witch trials, we've already had a podcast. It's specifically podcast episode 131 titled Witch's Cake and Reverse Critical Thinking, the European Witch Trials. And that was a freaking phenomenal one that we recorded, in my own opinion. I did the research, so maybe I'm a little biased. But it was so interesting. It's just like, so I guess the Catholic Church was like, y'all are going to be doing some Sabbath stuff at 3 to 4 in the morning and we ain't having it. So they were like, they put the kibosh on any activities between 3 and 4 a.m. because I guess they just thought that that's when all of the witches and warlocks came out and were like, they're going to get jiggy with it, like shake their hams under the moonlight. I don't know. So they put the kibosh on it. Like even if you had jobs during that time, they said that people working specific jobs also had to like stop what they were doing and like take a nap or something, twiddle their thumbs, I don't know, from 3 to 4 in the morning. Otherwise people were like, they were going to knock on your doors and be like, which one of you has your hams out under the moonlight? So I guess I just wanted to know like what kind of jobs like people were doing in 1535 that they would be awake from 3 to 4 in the morning. Cause like, again, this was before the Industrial Revolution, and the Industrial Revolution is what created the need for shift work, as we just talked about. So like swing shift and night shift and things like that. So like what jobs were they doing? Well, in the Renaissance era, people that would be doing things for just normal stuff from 3 to 4 in the morning were like bakers. People were getting up real early to bake bread. People that would do laundry. So they would have people that would go around and gather laundry for people and just have big old pots, and they would boil the stuff in the evening so that by the morning time people could pick up their laundry early morning in the day. Some people said bankers were doing weird things in the morning. I feel like that's honestly where the real witches and the warlocks were doing banky stuff in the middle of the night. I'm not sure. I don't know. Investments. I don't know if they had investment people then. People called Coopers, which I thought was interesting because now I'm thinking about like people's last names and where the origin of like last names for people were, because I knew someone in high school with the last name of Cooper. But I guess Cooper as a job or work are barrel makers. So they just made like big old barrels for like wine and stuff for shipping things in. And then grocers were people that made spices or would sell spices at the market. And then printers. So printers were basically the people that would, before they had the printing press, they would handwrite everything, make newspapers, make signs, translate transcripts, and do a whole bunch of filing. So they would be doing stuff between 3 or 4 in the morning as well. So these were all these people had the kibosh put on them because they were like, listen, we're really worried about witches and warlocks, so you just can't do anything between 3 and 4 a.m. So they didn't. The next part of where the witching hour phrase came from. So, you got to think about this. So 1535, they're like, listen, this is the hour in which witches are out. So you can't do this. That's not cool. So I guess because of that, and I don't think they used witching hour in 1535. So because of the church in 1535, in Shakespearean time, and I think Shakespeare was alive, I think he died in 1616. So just to give you a rough estimate of like, Shakespeare lived pretty close to the time when the Catholic Church was like, no 3 to 4 a.m. activities, not allowed. So he would have known about this. It would have been like common knowledge for him, assuming. So Shakespeare alluded to the concept of the witching hour in his play Hamlet with the line, "'Tis now the very witching time of night, when churchyards yawn and hell itself breeds out contagion to this world. ... There's more to it. But that is where another sort of witching hour concept came from. So we all know how popular Shakespeare is. I'm sure with that little line, people started to get ideas about the witching hour. So just to continue snowballing the long game of telephone and how the idea of the witching hour came to be, Elizabeth Carolina Keynes, she had a poem that came out in 1762, and it's one of the first recorded uses of the term, specifically witching hour. And in her poem, she published a little book. It was a collection of poems, literally titled Miscellaneous Poems, that was published in 1762, because I'm sure there's a lot of like poetry fanatics that listen to this podcast. So if you want to go look at or read Elizabeth Carolina Keynes' poems, you can do so. But I'm going to read The Nightmare now. Please excuse the fact that I'm very not good at reading poetry. But I thought it was important to share, to culture you all like some yogurt. So, The Nightmare by Elizabeth Carolina Keynes. 'Tis the baleful witching hour. Lo, the moon withdraws her light. Hark! From yonder mouldering tower screams Tillith bonding bird of night. Now doth murder's dagger gleam, murdered by the Furies led. Now to haunt the villain's dream yawning graves give up their dead. Midst claps of loud thunder, rocks rendering asunder in lightning dreaded glare, with mischief delighted while nature stands frighted, the hags mount the air. The hag mounts the air. Midst hail, rain, and snow, see we go. Midst hurricane, whirlwind, and storm, the cattle beneath us at once cease to breathe as our pestilent rites we perform. Dun dun dun. Anyways, that is Elizabeth's poem from 1762, in which one of the very first usages of the witching hour as it is written was used. So moving on, we also have folklore. So from 1535's invocation of the 3 to 4 a.m. no dancing with your hams under the moon by the Catholic Church, the folklore came about. So the term witching hour is based on the idea that supernatural beings such as witches and demons and ghosts are most active between 3 and 4 a.m. So I don't know. I think that just comes with the fact that the Catholic Church was like, the witches are out now. So everyone's like, that's when the demons come out. That's when the supernatural stuff happens. So no, that's the witching hour. So, I don't know. Now, there are some beliefs that the witching hour is not necessarily 3 to 4 a.m. In some parts of the world, people think that it is between 12 to 1 a.m. Other people think it's 12 to 3. And some people think that it's the time between sunrise and sunset, which is interesting to me. I mean, that makes sense, the sunrise, sunset idea of it being the witching hour, because technically we as humans, let's talk about the biology or physiology of it for a second. I think it's the biology. Anyways, let's talk about the biology of it for a second. We as humans are what are known as diurnal creatures. I know that sounds kind of funny. Like, what are we talking about urinals for? Diurnal is talking about our behavior when it comes to when we rise and wake and do activities. So for us, we're diurnal, which means that we are daytime creatures. We do most of our shitting and getting during the daytime when there's light outside, because our eyes aren't that great. We're predators. We have great depth perception. However, we need light to see things. So that is why we are diurnal creatures. We do all of our stuff during the day. However, because we do all of our living during the day underneath the sunlight, there is a lot of nocturnal creatures which come out at the night, which can eat us. Hence why I think there's a primitive instinctual fear of the night, like me. Forever, always scared, need a nightlight, need tiny pocket flashlight on belt loop that is size of thumb. Do not like the dark, can't see things, runs into things, not fun. So I think, just biologically speaking, we're nervous about things that we can't see and things that happen when we are going to sleep or are trying to protect ourselves while we're sleeping. I mean, think of like primitive people in a village. Like a couple people might take watch during the evening while the rest of the people sleep and then switch in and out. So to think about nocturnal things that were happening. And then specifically, there's also creatures that are known as being crepuscular. That would be the sunrise and sunset creatures, like the ones that make all the noise before the calm of the night happens. So those are creatures that exist or are most active during the twilight, such as the period before sunrise and after sunset. So that twilight sort of half light that goes on twice a day. So, I mean, as humans, to think about that, we don't exist most confidently between those periods of time. So I think it would be natural for humans to be afraid of the things that we try to protect ourselves from instinctually. Moving on to the 3 to 4 a.m. debacle of, is that really the witching hour, or where did that idea come from? Biblical references to the death of Jesus were calculated as having occurred at 3 p.m. And if someone accepts these biblical calculations, then the inversion or opposite of this time was then considered, quote, the devil's hour. So I think this is kind of interesting to talk about, honestly. So if people that are religious or love Jesus, the Bible, etc., believe or accept that 3 p.m. is the time that Jesus died, and that everything that's the inversion, so 3 a.m., is bad because it's the opposite of when he was there, then that would make sense as to why people might think that the witching hour is only 3 a.m. and not 3 p.m. I mean, let's step back for a second. We talk about a lot in these podcasts that your perception creates your reality or creates your spiritual experience as well, because spirit will show you things that align with your mindset, or will use things that you've experienced in order to convey information to you. Yes. So if you're under the impression of, because there's a lot of people that love Jesus, I'm okay with that. I think Jesus is a cool guy. I specifically like the part of the Bible where he comes into a temple and flips a table and starts yelling at people. That is my favorite Jesus. That is the Jesus that I would like to resonate with continually. You come to this place of worship and you're selling things? Are you kidding me? Flips table, smashes pie, crunches can overhead. I don't know. That's the way that I like it. But anyways, if you are someone that really likes Jesus, then you may feel protected. And if there's a lot of other people in the world with this same idea, since we manifest our reality, with the same idea that 3 p.m. is like a sacred time, hence when Jesus may be around to protect you, etc., then maybe the paranormal activity wouldn't be happening. You know? Like, it's all about the mindset. So even outside of Cole's idea of like, technically, the 3 a.m., 3 p.m. thing with the way the world works and the sun rotates, etc., or the earth rotates around the sun, 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. would be happening continually. But if people at 3 p.m. believe that that is a sacred time, then they might believe and carry the idea that Jesus protects them, and therefore certain paranormal, metaphysical, spiritual things may actually not happen. You know, does that make sense? If it doesn't, let me know in the comments. That was just something that I was thinking about with reading this information about 3 p.m. So moving on. Also thinking about the 3 a.m. Idea, when we visited the Conjuring house, not once but twice, because we went with Amanda and Mackie too. Our experience at the Conjuring house was that the paranormal activity starts to elevate and become more sporadic and increased, I guess, as the night goes on. So anytime from like, I don't know, I would say like 11, 12 to 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. is when I started to realize that there was a decrease in activity. Now, the Conjuring house is a very, 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 very famous place. Lots of people talk about it. Lots of people's ideas, I'm sure, influence it, and their perception of what it is, what it does, who's there, etc. What it is, what it do, sorry. And maybe that is what was influencing our experience there. But I'm not sure, honestly. Maybe it is just the idea, the colloquial idea of the 3 a.m. being the witching hour that was manifesting our experience, because the Conjuring house, as I understand it, in my own personal opinion and experience, is it shows you the things that you're scared of. It reflects the things that you personify as scary, or personifies the things that you think are scary. So if we think that things get worse in the evenings, then maybe that actually was what we were projecting and creating. But I don't know. I kind of like thinking about this makes me want to go to quote unquote haunted locations during the day and just see what happens, and then maybe go to the same location at a different date, or maybe the same day. I don't know. It's hard to try and schedule ghost hunts like that, but do it at night too and see if there's a difference in energy. Because a lot of haunted locations are abandoned or people don't go there. So if you could go there when no one else is there during the day and then at night, then you could try and see if the 3 a.m. witching hour thing is actually real. Plus, you have to take into consideration the souls that are at those places too, as well, and the ideas that they may have about time and space, et cetera, et cetera. So, because then maybe that might influence their ability or their want, need, desire, or reflection of you being in that space at that time. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, if someone that passed was a part of the witching hour type thing. Like maybe you are trying to talk to Shakespeare, and Shakespeare therefore only is like, I'm not going to talk to you talk to you around 3 or 4 a.m. because that's the witching hour and I'm not going outside. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe he specifically tries to mess with you and is like, I'm only going to talk to you between 3 and 4 a.m. because that is the only time slot in which I will talk to you at all, because that's when the veil is thin. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like that soul's perception of this idea may influence how they would interact with you paranormally, etc. So I just, it's all just about perceptions and how people view things and stuff like that, I guess. I'm not sure. All right, so I do want to talk about the Cody and Satori thing, since I'm bringing up the Conjuring house too. So months back, Emily and I made a video reacting to, I think it was part 2 of Sam and Colby's Conjuring House series. And it just was interesting because I had not seen them. We blind react to things. Emily had already watched one or more, I'm sure one, I'm not sure about more, of the series, right? And that was without me. And I didn't know about Cody and Satori aside from what Amanda had told me when we had been to the Conjuring house earlier that year in October to record our video. And we talk about how spirit will give you information using things that you have experienced to convey things, concepts, right? And I remember reacting to that video where they do the tapping, supposedly, and get information from, who was it? One of the Conjuring house, like, founding women. And I remember saying that I feel that what my spirit guides are showing me is that Cody and Satori are able to amplify things in order to make noises, right? Amplify spiritual information or amplify information to make noises, et cetera, et cetera. And I talked about my reservations for their validity in the video. I was like, I don't know, Emily, I think we should cross-reference this. Like, I want to believe that it's real because the things that they're saying are within the idea of love and light, in my opinion, which is what mediums should always work in, and helpfulness and healing, etc., my opinions. But the science part of me wants to test this. Like, I need to like see it for myself in order to believe it, you know? And I want to spread peace, love, and positivity in the words of logic, which is why I want to give positive views and helpful things and not be the person that's always just trying to debunk everything, but in a very like mean manner, you know? And I've been told by other people that are much more active in the spiritual and paranormal community, that there's been like a quote unquote witch hunt for paranormal investigators and mediums and things like that on the internet, which I think is valid. I think it's maybe necessary. I don't think it's necessary in a way that's hurtful and mean and derogatory to people. I think as long as someone isn't hurting someone, then it's fine. But that's why I wanted to talk about this. I have had people reach out to me in our Patreon community and tell me that there are a lot of things that are bad that Cody and Satori have been doing. I don't remember the specific details of them. I just know that maybe perhaps they weren't working in love and light. And it just makes me sad that they weren't, and that most possibly what they were doing was fraudulent and invalid. And it made me rethink what my spirit guides thought. Like, I went through a period a couple months ago where I was like, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to talk negatively about them, but like, why would my spirit guides show me something that's wrong? Again, as a medium, I'm not always right. I don't know everything. And sometimes the things that I do perceive can be shrouded by my ego, or they can be wrong. So I'm like, okay, were my spirit guides showing me something wrong, or was I not getting any information at all? And I was just being egotistically influenced by Amanda's things that she had said positive to me when we were at the Conjuring house about Cody and Satori, because she had seen them, or gave me the perception or idea that she had seen them working in action. And I trust Amanda because I've worked with her personally. And, or was I misinterpreting what my spirit guides were saying? Or was I completely wrong and I wasn't getting anything? Because Emily also seemed really excited about it. And you don't want to just like poo-poo on someone's excitement, especially when they're your best friend. So I thought back and I was like, okay, what did my spirit guides specifically say about them? And I went back and I watched that one snippet of the video where I say like something along the lines of, I feel like I see that they're able to amplify energy around them, or spiritual energy around them. And I feel like, honestly, if they were not making the tapping noise, which at this point I feel like, just given all of the things that they're saying, like not just all of the things that they're saying, but the things that I've been educated on by other people, because like I talked about at the beginning of the podcast and the life update, I didn't know that Cody was a part of TAPS. I didn't know what TAPS was, honestly. I didn't know that they were a paranormal investigation team and all this other stuff. And that Satori's selling crystals on Etsy or something. I don't know. Just all of these like weird little random things that make me feel less inclined to want to say that what I was watching was real, and that what my spirit guides were saying was to be interpreted as that they were amplifying the energy to make the knocking noise. Perhaps I misinterpreted what my spirit guide said, and that the actual interpretation should be that Cody and Satori are good at amplifying things. Therefore, just amplifying things in general, because given the stuff that's going on in the internet and everything with the Conjuring house, because of that video, a lot of things have gotten very noisy, and a lot of commotion has been caused, and a lot of things have been stirred, and a lot of things have been quote unquote amplified and projected. So perhaps that was the interpretation that my spirit guides were trying to give me, and I was influenced by my ego and other people's ideas that they had already given me, etc. And I just wanted to talk about that, because I think that might be more so the case given the things that I've learned now and the new perceptions that I have about the situation. So that is just what I wanted to talk about. I don't know. People were telling me a lot of things that make me very sad about the situation with Cody and Satori. And I thought it was all love and light, and I was trying to be very positive and helpful, that even if what they're doing is invalid, it was sending a good message. But I guess that's not the case. And it makes me sad. And I just want people to know that I don't think that they should fixate on it necessarily, and that if it doesn't serve you, let it go. Just move on. Don't think too hard about it, my friends. whatever is meant for you will find you, and just peace, love, and positivity to the most that you can possibly spread. Anyways, I just wanted to take a time to talk about that, tell you about the things I didn't know, the things that I was now enlightened of, and because of that, how I now interpret the information that I received in that video. And that is the last thing I want to say about it, because it's just been like, it just makes me sad. So anyways, all right, moving on to more things about the witching hour. So the association of witches with midnight is rooted in folk beliefs that supernatural phenomena are most prevalent at certain times of day and year, similar to seasonal events such as solstices and equinoxes. And midnight was deemed to evoke magic. So this is another area where they talk about midnight being the witching hour, not necessarily 3 to 4 a.m. But I did want to talk about how they say, like, so midnight, 3 to 4 a.m., whatever, they relate it to people's folk beliefs that certain times of day and year are linked to supernatural phenomena. So we talked about, and they say solstices and equinoxes. So solstices and equinoxes are more so like yearly or seasonal things. So you have like Beltane and other pagan holidays that coincide with the seasons and the different times of the year. But we talked about this in the mediumship circle. So mediumship circles are something that happen on Patreon. We meet once a month with, I believe it is Infinite No Domain and the 4th tier. So 4 and 5 tiers. So the 2 top tiers of Patreon, we meet for mediumship circles once a month. It's like the 4th Wednesday of every month in the evenings. And we talk about things like this. And we talked about this specifically in one of the last mediumship circles, which is why I wanted to talk about it. We share psychic abilities and try to fine tune our mediumship skills, et cetera, and I answer questions, and these are the things we ponder. So I was talking about moon magic in the last mediumship circle, and someone asked me, like, what's the difference between moon magic and sun magic? And I was like, I never thought about that before, because I'm a wee babby in the words of my sister-in-law when it comes to understanding moon-centered spirituality. And I think that if you want to believe in the witching hour, then that would be unlike solstices and like the pagan holidays like Beltane, etc. I'm not going to try to say the other ones because I know I will butcher them. I just know that I can say Beltane, which is why I'm saying it. I think those would be sun-related holidays because they're seasonal or yearly. But I think moon magic might be more affiliated to the witching hour because moon magic is more so, I think, nightly as well as monthly, because the moon goes through monthly cycles, and every day the moon changes from like full moon, waxing moon, crescent moon, waning moon, etc. So the magic is going to be different every single day. So perhaps the witching hour is a portion of moon magic. And I know that is something that Cole, you asked at the beginning of this, of like, does it have to do with the moon? It just might. It might be a part of the moon magic. Because, I've also been thinking about this as well. We talked about werewolves and like where that sort of folklore came from as well. And we're like walking cucumbers, right? Humans are made up of 90% water or something like that. And the moon is what moves the tides, and the tides are water. Like without the moon, there wouldn't be high tide, there wouldn't be low tide, all the waves, etc. So perhaps maybe given the placement of the moon in the sky between 12 and 1 or 3 to 4 or sunrise to sunset or twilight or whatever moves the emotions or the water inside of us, because in tarot, water is always associated with emotions. So if the moon affects water within people, which is just a very spiritual concept in and of itself, very abstract, then perhaps maybe that is where the magic comes from, water, emotions, etc. So anyways, I just wanted to talk about that. I thought that was kind of cool. All right, moving on. It was, and it is still believed, that during the witching hour, the boundary between the living and the dead becomes blurred, and the living are more sensitive to the spirits of the dead. Witches, sorcerers, and fairies were among the spirits and figures believed to have stronger powers during these times and to carry out their mischief or dark practices at night. Which, if I'm going to do illicit activities, I'm probably going to do it at night too. Like I was also reading the witching hour. They have bands between like 12 and 1 or 11 or something in Washington. If you guys are from like the DC area, Washington, DC, I guess they have bans or like curfews of when people have to go to bed or not be out on the streets because it cuts down on gun violence. So, I feel like that also might just be a thing of people getting jiggy with it at night has been happening for a really long time because they're like, when can I do things that no one will see me? At night. And they're like, you, sir, are a demon. You're a witch. You were trying to do weird things at night because you thought you could get away with it because I'm a diurnal human being that only likes to do things during the day and you're trying to deceive me. You're a witch, So it just makes sense with the idea of people in and of itself. Now, I want to talk about the physiology of the witching hour as well, which I thought was kind of interesting. And if you guys want, I'm going to try and put links to all of the sources that I got this information from on the internet down below in the description below as well, if you want to go on a little tangent, wormhole, rabbit hole, whatever you want, hole of information. So the physiology of the witching hour. So this is just from Wikipedia. It says, the idea of the witching hour may stem from the human sleep cycle and circadian rhythm, which we've talked about. We are diurnal beings that like to do things during the day and sleep at night. The body is going through REM sleep at the time where the heart rate is slower, body temperature reduced, breathing pattern and blood pressure are irregular, and sudden awakening from REM sleep could cause agitation, fear, and disorientation in an individual. So, between 12 and 1 or 3 to 4 is when people are going through their REM sleep. So if you have something that freaks you out, then it could cause things in which you may perceive stuff that isn't actually there. So Wikipedia goes on to outline also during REM sleep, which usually occurs within the witching hour, unpleasant and frightful sleep disturbances such as parasomnias can be experienced, which include nightmares, rapid eye movement sleep behavior disorder, night terrors, sleepwalking, and sleep paralysis. And if you all know, I think they're called hypnopompic hallucinations, is when you get woken up in REM sleep or during a sleep paralysis episode, I guess, which would be a hypnopompic hallucination in and of itself. Your brain needs to think about things when it's asleep. Otherwise, it thinks that it's dead. Hence why we have dreams. Or one of the reasons we have dreams. So if you wake up during a dream and your body doesn't realize that you are indeed physically awake and still thinks that it's dreaming, you will see things around the room, hence hypnopompic hallucinations and or sleep paralysis. So Wikipedia continues, moreover, during the night and well into the witching hour, symptoms of illnesses and conditions such as lung disease, asthma, flu, and common cold seem to exacerbate because there is less cortisol in the blood at night and especially during sleep, such as the immune system becomes very active and white blood cells fight infections while in the body during sleep, and this would thereby worsen the symptoms of fever, nasal congestion, cough, chills, and sweating. So that explains why every time I have a cold and I try to go to sleep and my nose is fine, I wake up and I can't breathe, everything sucks, and I can't blow my nose because I'm congested and I'm coughing because of the congestion. That makes a lot of sense. That just answers something for me just personally. So anyways, between those hours, physiologically speaking, you could possibly think like, why is my fever getting worse? Why is my nose congested? And in the old times around like 1535, before and after, up until a certain point, people might think that there's like a demon sitting on their chest trying to kill them. There's literally a picture. Let me, so you guys can also look it up. It's a very well-known art. And the art is the 19th century version of Fossili's The Nightmare. So this image from 1781 projects a woman sleeping or asleep on like a lounge chair. And there is literally some weird ass little demon thing sitting on her chest looking at whoever's painting the picture. And that is what people used to think one of the reasons nightmares were caused by. So if you are having any of these physiological things happening to you before modern science and medicine, people would have thought like, maybe someone put a hex on me. Maybe there's some witches in Estabeth shaking their hams out in the moonlight, and that's why I'm having all these problems, So it just goes back to like podcast episode 131. It's interesting. So Given all of that information, what do I think about the witching hour? I think that the witching hour is a real thing, but I also think that the reason it's a real thing is because people think it's a real thing because of the things that have happened in 1535 and thereafter, and that people manifest their own existence or their own energetic stuff around their existences. So if you're someone who believes that Jesus protects you around 3 p.m. because of the biblical things that have been adapted to have those calculations, and therefore 3 a.m. is evil, then 3 p.m. you are protected by Jesus, and by 3 a.m. you're not. I don't know. It's just people's perceptions create their reality. And I think this is very, very much always important and should be thought about when it comes to spirituality. So I think it could be a moon magic. I think that the moon could affect people's ideas. Like my mom's a nurse, and I have a lot of friends that are nurses, and they all talk about full moon and the mania, the maniacs, and the things that happen with their patients when it's a full moon. The people that are in the Alzheimer's unit or the dementia unit or just are psychotic, etc. They always tell me about how people will Rochambeau for not taking the night shift when it's a full moon. And I guess, I don't know, is there any nurses on here that have seen things happen on a full moon that isn't at night? Like, do you know that it's a full moon and then you work a day shift and there isn't any problems? It only happens at night? Like, or is there no difference? It's just a full moon, and during the day people are acting a little abnormal or out of sorts or out of character, etc. And it's not just at night. Like, let me know in the comments below. I need to know these things. I'm excited about it. Cole needs to know these things. But I think that the witching hour is a thing only because people have made it a thing. And if you don't believe it's a thing, it may not be a thing. But I think if you are going to try and do a ghost investigation, etc., on your own at 3 p.m. instead of 3 a.m., that might be constituent on the fact that the souls that you're trying to contact or channel, I guess is a better word, might be adhering to their perception of what the witching hour may or may not be to them. So I hope you all enjoyed this podcast. It was definitely fun to make. I was excited to research the witching hour and the ideas about it. And I'm excited to know about what you guys think about the witching hour in the comments below. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please feel free to leave a review. I will read it in a future podcast, sharing with everyone what you think about this podcast, etc. So I am taking availability. I've updated the website and the availability for readings for September, and it's almost to the end of October. And now it should just automatically update so that 30 days out, more like availability will show up. So that's fun. I am offering, I call them spiritual guidance, I think, readings. It's under the same block of psychic medium readings. But if you don't necessarily want to talk to past loved ones and have guidance about your life, etc., things that are going on, or talk to someone that has passed, but you want to talk to someone like me about the spiritual questions that you have or the experiences you've had, please go book a spiritual guidance reading. I'm excited to meet you and answer and ponder the questions that you have and see what spirit has to say about them and the things that you're going through, etc. So if you are interested in a pet psychic reading or a house reading, I answered a medium, an email question today about someone. They said that the energy of their house shifted when their father died. However, it changed when their father's ashes came back to the house, and they wanted to know if that perceived awkwardness or like feeling like home wasn't home because their father wasn't there was just because of their own like energy and perceptions around it. Because they were like, well, I know my dad is technically there because when he passed, like his physical body doesn't need to be in the house to make it feel better, right? So was I creating that, or was it actually happening? And the answer that I got was that the house actually missed their dad, so that once his ashes were returned to the house, the energy of the house could actually settle and go back to a normal state. And I was like, I would not think that a house would miss a person like this. And I just thought it was a really, really interesting thing. So like house readings, that's also something that's always fun. I like doing house readings. They always show me perspectives I've never seen before and make me rethink how I need to like live in my house, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate you being here. And until next time, PsycKicks. Peace.